Catherine Garcia is an ordained minister and currently serves with her husband as the executive pastors of Freedom Life Church in Mission, Texas. She is a certified coach and speaker with the John Maxwell team and has traveled extensively in Mexico, Southeast Asia, England, Northern Ireland, and Africa, working on many different humanitarian and ministry projects and speaking engagements. She recently served as the president of the board of directors of the Mission Economic Development Corporation and has previously served as the Madam Chairwoman for the Greater Mission Chamber of Commerce. Cathy has served on the board of directors for the Mission Economic Development Authority, Mission Education Development Council as well. She currently serves on the board of directors for Hope in Mission, Mission Prosperity Ventures, and Lead Missions International. Cathy serves her community with great dedication, and this commitment has earned her the distinguished honor of being named Missions Woman of the Year in 2015. And awarded the honor of being inducted in the Rio Grande Valley Walk of Fame in 2018. Catherine and her husband, Eliud, have been married for 28 years. Together, they have a son and a daughter.
Hello, ladies, and welcome to the 2020 Leading Ladies Conference. I'm so honored and excited to be with you today. It would be so great if we were all sitting in a room together, face to face in Yaoundé, in a big hotel. But I know that that's not possible this year, so I'm really grateful for this platform that we have today, that we can literally be scattered across the planet and still be able to come together for such a great conference. I have had the privilege of being a board member with Lead Missions International from the very onset of the organization. And it's been such a privilege to be a part of this great team that is literally training leaders across the planet. Dr. Ngavison and his team are doing such a great job, and I'm so grateful that I get to participate in the conferences and the different things that go on with Lead Missions International. I know that you're going to glean so much from these couple of days and from this conference. So today I come to you all the way from deep South Texas, right on the border of Texas and Mexico. And I know that we have people joining us from everywhere. So I say to you, buenos dias, buenas tardes, and I say to you, welcome. Just make yourself at home, get comfortable, because we are going to have a great time together today. So I had the privilege of visiting Cameroon for the first time in 2011. I went to Boya with a small team from the organization that I work with, and we got to be in Boya, in Limbe, in Inicona, and we had some conferences, some leadership conferences that we did there. And it was actually in Boya that I fell in love with Cameroon. I fell in love with the beautiful people and the delicious food and the culture. And I knew when I was in Boya that it would not be my last time in Cameroon. And in fact, in 2016, I went again to Cameroon with a team from my church, and we had a pretty large team that year, and I had the privilege of having my son go with me. We were in Yaoundé. We did some leadership conferences, and on that particular trip, I had the privilege of meeting with His Excellency Philemon Yang, who at the time was the Prime Minister, and we got to meet with his cabinet members, and it was such an amazing trip. I again returned to Yaoundé last year for the Leading Ladies Conference and was a speaker at the conference, and we had such a tremendous time. So I truly love Cameroon and the people, and I wished that we were together today. However, I was thinking about preparing for this conference, and I thought all those times that I went to Cameroon, I didn't go by myself. I always had a team of people with me. So I thought, why should I do this conference by myself? So I'm not going to. Guess what? I am bringing some friends along that you're going to hear from today as part of this session. So get ready. We are going to have a wonderful time together. So today we're going to be talking about purpose and legacy. I think we can agree today that we're alive, that we have breath in our lungs, we're on planet Earth, we're breathing, we're living, but you know what? We're not just living for the sake of existence. Each and every one of us have a really unique purpose and plan, something individual to you and to me. We each have a destiny and a purpose to be fulfilled. And I want to talk to us today about our purpose leading us to leaving a legacy. There are 3 points I want to make today. Point number 1 is this: passion ignites purpose. Passion. What is it that you're passionate about? You see, as women, we live our life with great emotion. We have ups and we have downs, we have highs and we have lows. We're not like the flowers and the trees and the bushes that they exist, but they don't have any emotion. No, that's not us. We are full of laughter and life, and we have feelings, and emotions are plentiful in us women, aren't they? Well, these emotions show us what we are passionate about. What are the things that light you up? What are the things that excite you? What are the things in your life that bring you satisfaction and great joy? What are you drawn to? Are you drawn to music, business, cooking, law, caring for others? I mean, there's options. There's tons of things, individual things that we're each drawn towards. What is it that you're drawn towards? Those things that excite you, those things will help you to identify your passion. When you use your feelings properly, they are very effective in motivating you towards your destiny. Purpose and passion are interconnected. You know, in my life, I'm passionate about a couple of things. I'm really passionate about music. I love music. I love to sing. I have music playing in my car and throughout my house. I have speakers in my bathroom. I love music and I love to sing. Something else I'm passionate about is living. I love to live life. I love to have fun. I'm passionate about helping other people live their life to the fullest. I'm passionate about coaching and training and helping other people to fulfill their destiny and their purpose. I'm passionate about that. I love life. You know, finding what really stirs you up, finding that thing or those things, sometimes it's not just one thing, finding those things in your life are critical to you stepping into your destiny and fulfilling your purpose. Right now, we're living in really unprecedented times. I never dreamed that I would be living in a world pandemic. When the pandemic first started, I'm like, this is surreal. I can't believe this is happening. We're living in a crazy time. And, specifically in our community in Texas, we're having a huge breakout of COVID-19, and people are lots and lots of people are sick, and the hospitals are getting packed, and it's kind of scary sometimes and chaotic. And it's like, what's happening? What are we living in? And, it just brings me to the thought that if there's ever a time that we need to be living out our destiny and fulfilling our purpose, it's now. There are things about your life that only you can fulfill that other people need. You know what? Your gift right now is needed in your community. My gift, maybe there's something that only I can bring to my community. It's time now, in the midst of a crazy time on planet Earth, that we rise to the occasion to fulfill our destiny and to step into our purpose. Other people need you. Other people need your gift. Other people need maybe what only you can bring. Ladies, it's time for us to rise to the occasion and find out what are we passionate about and how can we step into fulfilling our destiny. years ago, a few years back, I have a really good friend that had called me, and she had asked me to go stay with her. She lives a couple of hours away from where I live, and her husband was going to be out of town, and she said, hey, come over. Let's spend some time together. And so I drove up to her house, and a couple of days before I got there, she had not been feeling well. And when I got there the next day, her doctor called and said, hey, I need you to come in. I ran your blood work that you had taken, and I need you to come in, and I need to sit down with you. So I said, great, let's go. So we got in the car, we went to the doctor's office, and unbeknownst to us, the doctor was very serious, and he said, I need you to sit down. He said, your blood work came back, and you have cancer. And he proceeded to tell my friend, not only do you have cancer, but you have cancer that does not have a cure. And basically that day gave her a death sentence. We drove home. We were okay. We drove back to her house, and that night she went to bed, and I went to the room that I was staying in, and I literally got on my face on the bed, and I was sobbing. I was heartbroken, and I began to cry out, and I was like, God, do something. And my heart was just broken, and I found myself that night on my face, and I began to cry out, and I was like, God, let me give her my bone marrow. Let me give her my bone marrow so she can live. And, I had heard of bone marrow transplants before, and I'm telling you this story because I'm passionate about life. I'm passionate about living life, and I just got the report that my best friend was dying. And so I woke up in the morning, okay? I got up, I couldn't wait for her to get up, and I went and I told her, I said, friend, let's call the doctor. I have an idea. Let's ask the doctor if I can donate my bone marrow so that you can live. And so we talked about it for a little while, and we proceeded to call the doctor's office, and we spoke to the doctor, and we had this great idea. Let me donate my bone marrow so she can live. And the doctor listened to us, and he heard us out, and then he proceeded to tell us that she was not a candidate for bone marrow transplant. And again, our bubble was popped, and we were like, okay. And so we just decided, this is not a hopeless situation. We're gonna find the light at the end of the tunnel, and we're just gonna believe for something great to come out of this situation. So we spent the rest of the week together. Her husband returned, and I got in the car to drive those few hours back to my house. I'm driving, and my telephone rings, and so I answer my phone. So the voice on the other end of the phone said, let me speak to Catherine. And I said, who is this? And the voice said, I'm calling you from Be The Match. About 6 years ago, you donated blood, and you swabbed, and you signed up to donate your bone marrow. And we're calling you because there's a little girl, she's 12 years old, and you are a perfect match for her. Would you be willing to donate your bone marrow? And I told the lady, you know what, give me your information. I'm going to have to call you back. And I hung up the phone, and I pulled my car off to the side of the road, and I was like, God, I wanted to donate my bone marrow, but not to a stranger. I asked you, can I donate my bone marrow to my friend? And now out of the blue, I get this call. And this is what I heard in my heart. Your friend has faith to believe, but this little girl doesn't. Will you donate your bone marrow? So I got home, I talked to my family about it, and we all agreed, like, yes, I should do this. So after a lot of tests and procedures and all different kinds of things, I ended up donating my bone marrow to this 12-year-old little girl that has cancer. And I'm very happy to tell you that today that little girl is alive and well. And you know what? So is my friend. She's not cancer-free yet, but my friend is alive and she's doing well. I share this story with you because we each have a purpose and we each have a destiny to fulfill. And whatever you're passionate about, whatever stirs you up, because what stirs me up is living life. What stirs me up is helping others live their life fully. And sometimes we have to position ourselves. Sometimes we have to take that step into saying, yes, I will be available to donate my bone marrow. Yes, I will be available to do what I need to do so that others can live their life fully. Yes, I will fulfill my purpose, because right now in the middle of a world pandemic, somebody needs me. You might not be giving your bone marrow, but you might be the one that can be sewing the masks for those people that need a mask. Or you might be the one that can be singing the song that will bring joy and life to others. You might be the one that can cook a meal and take it to someone that needs a meal tomorrow. What is your gift? What is it that stirs you up that you can't wait to do, that someone else needs you to do? What is it that your community needs for you to do that maybe only you can do? Girl, rise up. Rise up. Your passion is connected to you fulfilling your purpose. So I want to say this. I realize that sometimes in life it's not easy, and we kind of get stuck. We kind of pull back, and we lose ourselves because our emotions sometimes go up and down. But you know what? I want to tell you right now in 2020, you may need to just pull yourself up and dig your high heels into the mud. Lay your ears back, girl, and just decide, you know what? I need to choose to step into my destiny. I need to choose to get out of maybe a rut, or that depression or that discouragement that you've been in. Sometimes we have to stir up our own passion. Sometimes you need to expose yourself to new things. You need to get out of the boat. You need to walk on the water. You need to do something different. You need to get involved. Maybe you need to get new friends. You need to get connected. You need to get exposed. And you will see that there are many more options than the situation that you are currently in. You can ignite your passion if you choose to. And you can do that at any age. You don't have to be the perfect size. You don't have to have the perfect weave. You don't have to have the perfect body. You don't have to be something specific. You just have to choose. You know what? I'm going to step into my destiny. And you can live out your purpose. It is passion that gives you the power you need to fulfill your purpose. But it is the pain in life that will shape you and give you the fortitude and refinement of character to do what you do. And this leads me to my second point. Purpose is propelled by pain. We go through painful seasons in our life. We go through times that are rough and tough. Are they distractions from our purpose? No, they don't have to be. We go through ups and downs like I talked about. We go through COVID-19. We go through divorces. We go through diagnosis. We go through difficult times, but do those things have to distract us from our purpose? They do not. I have never seen extraordinary people that did extraordinary things that did not have extraordinary issues in their personal lives. We've all seen those people that have had difficulties and obstacles. They've had those things that have come against them. And you know what? It was their pain that propelled them to overcome. And ultimately, because of those circumstances, they became better. And we've also seen those people that had those circumstances arise in their lives, those difficulties, that you know what? When those things arrived, they crumbled. They gave up, they stopped short, and you know what? They didn't get better. They became the victim, and they got bitter. Pain can and should become what propels you into your purpose, if you will learn from it. I want to take a moment right now to introduce you to my very good friend. Her story exemplifies this principle so well, and I want you to hear her story. So I want to introduce to you Miss Deborah Franco. She is the executive director of South Texas Juvenile Diabetes Association. She is an entrepreneur. She's a businesswoman. She's brilliant, and I'm so honored to tell you that she is one of my very, very best friends. And she's never gone with me to Cameroon, but if I had gone to Cameroon this year in 2020, I would have taken her with me. So I can't wait for you to hear her story. Deborah, why don't you come on up?
Thank you, Cathy, for that kind introduction. My name is Deborah Franco, and I am the Executive Director and co-founder of the South Texas Juvenile Diabetes Association. And as she said, wonderful things come out of painful experiences, and one of my most painful experiences was when my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Prior to his diagnosis, I was the CEO of an international business, and my husband was working full-time in a hospital, and we were tag team parents. So when Luke fell ill with strep throat, we took turns taking him to the doctor, and one of those visits, the doctor told us that his urine was really high in sugars. And it didn't really alarm us at all, because the pediatrician said not to worry, that he had been on antibiotics and to come back in a week and that we would recheck it, and he really gave us no reason for alarm. So a week went by, and it was my husband's turn to take him to the pediatrician, and he called me. I got a frantic phone call saying that the doctor had told him to go straight to Corpus Christi, which is over 3.5 hours away from our hometown, and that the emergency room technicians were waiting for him, not to go home, not to pack Luke a bag, and to be sure to get there as quickly as possible. And I couldn't even process what he was saying to me, because that same morning, Luke was acting like Luke. He was jumping over the couch and messing with his sister and kicking the dog and just being a normal, typical 8-year-old child. So when my husband gave me the news, I disregarded it, told him to come home, not to worry, that we would talk about it as soon as I got home that day. So at dinner time, my husband was really worried, and Luke was, of course, just running around the house being a typical 8-year-old. And I asked my husband again what the doctor had said, and he repeated what the doctor had said, and I told him, I said, they have to be wrong. There isn't anything wrong with Luke. I mean, look at him. But we continued with dinner, and his countenance just never changed. So I looked over at him and I said, would it make you feel better if we drove all the way to Corpus Christi, again, 3.5 hours away, just to make sure that there isn't anything wrong with Luke? And before I could even finish my sentence, he said yes. So we loaded up our vehicle, put Luke in the car, and started our 3.5 hour drive. That drive, the whole time, I'm sitting there thinking, I can't believe we're doing this. There isn't anything wrong with Luke. And the entire time we're driving up there, Luke is jumping through the car and asking to eat and just being a normal 8-year-old child. So I really thought it was a complete waste of time. But I heeded my husband's word and his concern, and I'm so glad that we did. The moment we got there, they whisked Luke out of the car, put him in the emergency room, put an IV in him. They started immediately giving him insulin, and that was the very first time we heard the words diabetes. And up until that point, I really had never encountered the disease personally. I didn't have any family that had been diagnosed with diabetes. I really didn't know what they were talking about, and in my own naiveness, I was thinking to myself, well, maybe we fed him too much sugar, and maybe we just didn't give him the right kind of atmosphere where he had enough activity, thinking mostly about type 2 diabetes. And Luke, of course, was kicking and screaming, and he didn't want any of it. And it wasn't until the following day when we talked to the endocrinologist that we realized that they were suspecting that he had type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune disease. And then we were given the even harder news that there was no cure for type 1 diabetes. That basically his body had turned on itself and his pancreas was no longer providing the insulin that he needed to live, which meant a really rigorous lifestyle. It meant that Luke was going to have to get anywhere between 8 and 10 injections a day, and that we were going to have to check his blood sugar anywhere between 10, 12, even 14 times a day. And it was really, really difficult. Luke was the only child in the hospital that had that diagnosis. So in his little 8-year-old mind, he believed that he was the only child in the world that was having to live this way. And it really broke our hearts to see him in such despair. The standard of care for a child newly diagnosed is about 3 days in the hospital, and during that time you're given all the tools that you need to take care of them. You learn a lot. You're taught about high and low blood sugars, how to give an injection, how to manage, and how to feed them, how their diet needs to work, and insulin to carb ratios, and all these crazy terms that I'd never heard of in my life. And then we were set off to go home on our own. And that was probably the scariest day of my life. I thought having my first child was the scariest day of my life because they handed me this newborn baby and said, here, he's all yours, take him home. But hands down, that day was the scariest day of my life because I didn't have anyone I could ask any questions to. When you have a newborn baby, you can ask your friends, you can ask your neighbor, you can ask anyone else who's ever given birth and get some pretty sound advice. But when you have a child that's newly diagnosed with a chronic disease, the challenges are immense, and finding people who you can talk to and who can support you through that desperate time is so challenging. So we got in our vehicle to drive home, and the nurses at the door were saying, wait, we need to teach you how to use glucagon should your child ever fall unconscious on you from a severe blood sugar low. And I'm thinking to myself, is this really happening? Is all of this really my new reality? All the while, you know, my husband is putting Luke in the vehicle, and we're preparing for our trip back home with all this new information that we had barely wrapped our heads around. And during that 3.5-hour ride home, my son is sitting in the back seat going, I want pizza. And I'm looking at my husband thinking, can he eat pizza? How many carbs does it have? How much insulin do we give him? I felt so ill-equipped to take care of my own son. And my heart was just broken. So we continued to drive home, and the next couple of weeks were just as difficult. My son started to slip into a serious depression. At 8 years old, he was having 3 and 4 meltdowns a day, just saying that he didn't want to live. He didn't want to live with this disease. He didn't want any more injections, and I didn't know how to help him. And I think that's probably such a difficult thing for a parent to know that your child is hurting and in pain and you can't help them. And so we reached out. We reached out to everyone we knew, trying to find help for Luke. We took him to a counselor, and Luke really didn't have any of it because in his little mind, the counselor had no idea what they were talking about because they didn't have to live the way he was living. So I knew that I had to find someone else that he could meet who had type 1 diabetes so that he knew he wasn't alone in his diabetes journey. And so I began searching, and I called everyone I knew to see if anyone knew someone who had a child with type 1 diabetes. And it wasn't very long before we found a family, and that family knew another family, and that family knew another family. And before I knew it, I had about 5 families at my home and the kids got to meet each other and play, and Luke was just so observant. He was watching them check their blood sugars and play and take their insulin and eat a snack if they needed to and continue to play. And I'll never forget that day, because it was a day that I realized that I needed as much support as he did. Talking to those parents and realizing that we spoke the same language and that we were going through the same struggles was so encouraging to me. And so it was time for everyone to go home, and I thought for sure we were going to go through the entire battle of checking a blood sugar and getting insulin. But after that one encounter with other children, Luke looked at me and said, "Mom, I want to try it by myself." So he checked his own blood sugar that day, and I just knew in my heart that no parent should ever go through what I went through. No parent should ever feel like they're alone. No child should feel like there is no hope. And so I set out. I set out to find a way to bring help to my hometown, and not to have to drive 3.5 hours for it, but to have something accessible to me. And that meant not only finding an organization, but also talking to local hospitals and local decision makers to bring down doctors who could take care of our children, so that if another child was suspected of having type 1 diabetes, they weren't sent over 3.5 hours away for care. And so I reached out to the American Diabetes Association, and I got the response that they were in South Texas, and they're in Corpus Christi, which again is 3.5 hours away. So I went to the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation in San Antonio, and I got the same response. We are in South Texas, and they're over 4.5 hours away. So it was at that point that I realized that if I truly wanted something that was going to impact not only our family, but all families, that I was going to have to start it myself. So that was the moment that I decided to retire. And I drew up all the paperwork and incorporated a nonprofit. And just to give you the timeline, Luke was diagnosed on July 1st of 2011, and by October 25th of that same year, the South Texas Juvenile Diabetes Association was born. We're almost 10 years old now, and the organization runs over 14 programs. And I think what the most powerful thing about my journey through all of this is just realizing how amazing it is to pour back into your community and to other people, and what a blessing it is to be able to be a source of encouragement and inspiration during those really dark times in other people's lives. And I feel like that, for me, was my healing and was really brought our family peace. Today, Luke is a really well-rounded 17-year-old, and he's just an amazing human being. And I know that giving him the opportunity to meet and know other people and to realize how important his life is and how important walking this journey out with him was, has encouraged him to do really great things and not to be identified by this disease, but rather know what his purpose is in this life and to go for it in spite of his challenges. So in my experience, I've come to realize one thing, that one person really does make a difference, and that we all make an impact in every person that we touch. And as it's been said over and over again, when you drop a pebble in a river, you get so many ripples. I have no idea what this project is going to end up being one day, but I know that it has powerful effects today. And that is enough to know that everyone should not only go for their purpose, but not fear it. I think sometimes God doesn't show us the full picture of things, knowing that fear will stop us. And because I went in with purpose and knowing what I needed to do, not only for myself, but for my community, I went in blind. And blind faith has brought me here today. And last year alone, the organization touched over 25,000 children alone in 1 year. I have no idea how many children we'll end up touching as time goes on. But I know that if I had feared and if I had not gone out in faith and done what my heart was pulling me to do, that many, many people would not have the opportunities that they have today. Our city has local hospitals now that can take care of children. We have local pediatric endocrinologists that can care for our children. No one has to leave our community for care and treatment if they have a child living with diabetes. And I am so proud to know that and to be a part of that. And I encourage you, if there is anything in your life that has been pulling on your heart, take that step of faith. Don't be afraid. Know that God is going to meet you there and take you the rest of the way. And it's going to be bigger and so much brighter than you could have ever imagined, because that's just how God works.
I love Deborah's story because it's such a perfect picture of turning a painful and difficult situation into the fulfillment of a dream and really the fulfillment of living purpose. Pain doesn't leave us the same. It's like problems and failures. They move us. They either move us forward and we get better, or we take a wrong attitude. It moves us backwards and we get bitter. So what can we really glean from our painful situations? How can we grow from those difficulties? Turn those challenges into positive moments in our lives. Deborah's organization literally touches hundreds of children in our region because she chose to let that situation make her better. She chose to let that situation launch her into her purpose. And I hope that whatever you're going through in your life, you will choose the same. Let's just recap for a moment, okay? So point number 1 was passion ignites purpose. We have to find what we're passionate about and go for it. Point number 2, purpose is propelled by pain. Get ready, because point number 3 is really good. Well, I told you that I was going to bring some friends along with me today, and that's just what I have done. I'm so excited to introduce to you my really good friend and my associate. Pastor Bernardo Martinez is the associate pastor of Freedom Life Church, where we both work. And Pastor Bern has actually been to Cameroon with me twice. And he's kind of like my partner in crime. We've worked together for a really long time, and I can't wait for you to hear his insight and just to be able to hear his heart today. Also with me is my very good friend, Miss Yvonne Gully. Yvonne went with me last year. We were together at the Leading Ladies Conference in Yaoundé, and she was one of the breakout speakers. And so I'm thrilled that she can be here, and she's going to share her heart with you today. So we're going to go on to our point number 3 today. And point number 3 is this: purpose requires persistence.
That's right.
We know that persistence is that grit that you have on the inside of you. It's when things get tough and you stay the course. When you don't quit, you become the overcomer of the odds. Those quotes that everyone knows: when the going gets tough, the tough get going. When at first you don't succeed, try again, right? Like, right. We know that it's that thing on the inside that makes you just stay on the course and keep going. It reminds me of that story, that children's story of the little engine that could. There's this little engine, and he's trying to go up the tracks, uphill, up the mountain. And he's going, and he's going, and he's like, I think I can. And the higher he goes, the slower he gets. I think I can. And when he finally makes it to the top, he's like, I thought I could. And that's a really good story of persistence. And it's that anticipation of when we get to the top, what's the reward that we're getting to? And that's persistence. And so I want you guys to kind of chime in. What are you thinking about how important persistence is in our pursuit of fulfilling our purpose?
Well, I can tell you that it's everything. I mean, you're never going to reach your purpose if you're not persistent, bottom line, right? Mm-hmm. And so persistence can be defined as remaining firm in a course of action in spite of difficulty or opposition.
That's good.
Okay? I don't know about you, but I have difficulty and opposition all the time. And so that should be a key indicator, right? That we're on course.
Yeah.
But persistence is key. I mean, there is absolutely, no way that when I was going through the difficulties, in my journey, that I had clarity about what my purpose was. Because there is no clarity when you're dealing in the daily grind of what we call persistence. Persistence isn't pretty. As a matter of fact, it's kind of ugly, but it's necessary. It's necessary to obtain your full potential and to fulfill your purpose.
Yes. What do you say, Pastor Brian?
Well, it comes to mind that one of the key elements of persistence is the decision you make right here. Because the thought process that you have is extremely important. How many women are right now relinquishing their purpose because somebody told them you can't?
No. Yeah.
And one of the greatest battles you will ever have is the person that told you you are good for nothing, or the only good thing you do is have kids and you can't do no more. So you have to fight those battles in your mind. Somebody said, if you can whip it in your mind, you can whip it in your workplace. If you can whip it in your mind, you can whip it in the doctor's office. Come on, somebody. If you whip it in your mind. So I believe that the persistence has to have a grip in your thought process. You have to make up your mind that you are greater than your current circumstance. Listen, in creation, I am a believer in Christ, and I go and I learn from the Bible, right? And in creation, in the Bible, we learn a principle that says this, that God leaves the best for last. So it was not a man, the one that was for the end, but it was woman that was at the very end. You as a woman, you were created last, and not because you are second, not because you are not important, but here's persistence. If God said, I created the woman at the very last, it means that the best, the most exquisite, the most beautiful, the most excellent, the most important was left for last. So you have to grab that thought. I am not last, but I am the first. I am not last, I am the beauty. I am not last, I have a purpose. And you have to tell your mind, you can do it. Because God left me for this time. God brought me for such a time as this. In your mind.
Yeah. I like the mental picture. And I use this personally a lot in my own life. Sometimes, you have to dig your heels in. You lay your ears back. I don't know if you can get that mental picture, but where you just say, you know what, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to push my way forward. And many times, that does have to start in our minds.
Right. And another thing is that, persistence is mental toughness. It's the definition of mental toughness, right? And so when I was going through difficulties, like I said, there was no clarity that I was in the midst of pursuing my purpose, right? When you're in the middle of the storms and the difficulties and the challenges. But what I can tell you is that I adopted a philosophy of failure is not an option. failure is not an option, okay? And so when I was a 19-year-old unwed young woman with my baby boy in front of me, failure was not an option. I was going to have to figure it out. Bottom line, right? When I was, in business and I was a 20-year-old running a multi-million-dollar company, and I was competing against men, and I was a minority, and you name it, right? And I had to prove myself. Failure wasn't an option. I'm sorry, And when I decided I wanted to start my own business, everybody told me, why are you doing that? You've always done great, had stable jobs. Why are you wanting to take the risk? Because I had the mentality already, and I had seen that it was proven that failure is not an option. And so I dug my heels in, and I just decided that that was going to be my life mantra. And guess what? I'm sitting here today talking to you about persistence because I've been persistent. And so I just want to encourage you women, that it's not an easy road, but I'm telling you, if you just put in the work, it's ugly, it's difficult, but at the end of the day, it's so worth it. It is so worth it.
Absolutely it is. Yvonne, what was your motivation?
I think that there's been different motivating factors along, my path, but one of the things he touched on, actually, I've been told a lot that I can't. And when you tell Yvonne that you can't, it fuels me. I will prove to you that not only can I, but I will. And so when I hear no, or when I hear I can't, it's motivation for me. And I can also tell you that my new definition for no and I can't is I'll find another way. I'll find another route. And so for me, it's the naysayers and people really, not believing in me early on, right? And then my children are absolutely my motivators, because I have to leave a legacy and I have to be an example for them. Before I left today, this is a cute story actually that fits in perfectly. I had a lot of challenging things happen early in the day. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to record today. This has been a bad day, And so I called my 16-year-old daughter in the room, and I shared with her that I was having a really tough time and that I had this really important thing I needed to do later. And she saw me kind of a mess earlier. And after I got dressed and I looked myself in the mirror and I said, you go and you do this now. I went back in her room and I went to show her this face. And I said, I just want you to remember this version of me. The earlier version existed. But at the end of the day, I want you to understand that I got up and I did it anyways.
It is. It's so good. So, yes, we desperately need to have that grit, that persistence as a part of our arsenal for fulfilling our purpose. So I want to talk now about as we live out our purpose, we need to look at our legacy. When we are stepping out into our dreams and our goals and for fulfilling those things that are before us, what kind of a legacy are we leaving? We need to leave a mark that cannot be erased. Oftentimes, when we think about legacy, we think that legacy is for the old and the dying, but that's absolutely not what legacy should be. We need to start thinking about our legacy now. Even if you're 18, even if you're 21, even if you're 42, now's the time, because if we don't think about our legacy until we're old and dying, by then, it's way too late. So Pastor Byrne, talk to us a little bit about legacy.
Well, it's a legacy. It's something beautiful that you can start working on today. We have a very prominent historical figure. His name is Martin Luther King Jr. And he talked about the length of life. And Dr. King was not referring himself to the chronological length of life. He was talking about how soon you accomplish your purpose in life. The length of life, how soon you can go from A to B. So this is so powerful because you need to draw from your purpose and decide how your life will be spent. The moment we start breathing is the moment that we also start dying. So you have to think about your legacy. And listen, one of the greatest obstacles for legacy is comparison. And you need to break that off of your life. You are unique. The way you look, the way your eyes are shaped, the way your hair looks, the color of your skin, the sound of your voice. Come on. Right. You are unique. Psalms, again, I'm a pastor, so I want to respectfully interject wisdom from where I draw wisdom from. Psalms 139 says that God knew you in your mother's womb. He knows you so much how you think that he says, before the thought comes to your mind, he says, I know it. And before your mouth speaks the words, he says, I already know. He loves who you are. So it's time for you to start. It's time for us to start loving that which God loves so that you can begin to live out your legacy before the end of your life comes. You can start legacy today. And I want you to start loving who you are. I want you to start accepting who you are. There's a beautiful story that I've told many times, and it touched my heart. And there was a man who had two beautiful pots. And every day he would grab a staff, a wooden staff, and put one pot on one end and the other pot on the other end. And he would carry it, put it on his shoulders, and he would go down to the stream of water and fill both of them up. They were so passionate because a pot's passion was to carry water and give it out. Passionate about their purpose. But all of a sudden, on the way back, one of the pots was cracked. And the pain of being cracked. I wonder how many of us that are here are broken again by something that somebody told us.
Right.
The shape of our bodies. And we look at our neighbor and she looks pretty fine. And I wish I would have her hair. And we begin to see, it is interesting how we see the perfection in others, but the only time that we see the cracks.
Go ahead, say it.
Somebody. So she, as the man would grab the pots full of water, one of the pots would have so much pain because she was cracked. And on the way back, she would begin to spill all her water from the cracks in her body. And it is like that when we walk in life. Sometimes the cracks, the pain, the struggles, the weaknesses, the curses that men or women have spoken against us cause us to leak out what we think is our purpose, and we're missing. We think we're missing it. One day, one of the crack pot guys was sad, and the owner came to her and said, "What's wrong? What's wrong with you?" She said, "I'm sad." Why? She said, "Because I am cracked." Lovingly, tenderly, he grabs her and he says, "Come, I will show you something." Yeah. And he said, "I want you to look on the way back from the stream, the perfect pot. Look at where she walks in. It was completely dry." Yeah. But he said, "I want you to now to look where you've spilled your water." And when she began to see, there was flowers, small trees growing, butterflies. Why? Because in the midst of her cracks, in the midst of her pain, she was living a legacy of life. And she understood, my cracks are not my detriment. My purpose is greater than my struggle. My purpose and my legacy, if I can persist in spite of my cracks. Come on, somebody.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
My legacy will be the end result. You can, I want you to focus on your legacy, but I want you to work on your purpose. I want you to focus and say, God, I thank you for the reward of my legacy, but today I want you to embrace your cracks. If you laugh loud, laugh louder. Be you. It's okay to leak every once in a while because it's okay. It's okay to be us.
Yvonne leaked earlier, she
I
said.
sure did, and I just told everybody about it. So
So don't let your weaknesses
Yeah.
determine your legacy in a bad way. Give yourself into your purpose and determine in your heart that you will fulfill it, and watch. God will use your cracks for someone else's blessing and someone else's purpose. So that's what I think about legacy. I think you're wonderful. I think you were created for such a time as this. I believe that. I want you to hear a Mexican man all the way from Texas tell you, I believe in you. My garden needs your cracks. My garden needs the water that comes out of your pain. And who around you needs the water from your pain? Who around you needs the water from your persistence?
so good, Pastor.
So good. Yvonne, when you're going through, like maybe earlier today, when you're going through those moments of struggle and difficulty, how do you talk yourself out of that?
You know, it's mental. I mean, we've said it. It starts in the mind, you know. And today, it was a matter of thinking about what God has spoken over my life and about knowing, right? There's that piece here that we talked about earlier, knowing that this is what I know I'm supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah.
And so just reminding myself about what I know I have been called to do. But I want to take a step back and touch on something that Pastor said. You know, when do you start talking about legacy or thinking about legacy, you know? And it started in the mind, back to what we're talking about, when I was really young, actually. Because like some of you, I didn't grow up in a rich household or anything like that. My mom worked and she taught us a lot of amazing things. I mean, my mom is a strong woman and I get a lot of my work ethic from her. But, you know, what I wanted to create for my daughter and my vision and my legacy was something different than what I grew up in. And I was not going to do that if I stayed in the same environment and in the same mentality. And so I had to purposely, on purpose, seek out others that were living out the things that I wanted in my life. Call it what you want, mentors, what have you, right?
Yeah.
But I had to seek it out. It didn't fall in my lap. And I think that God honors, you know, that persistence, that pursuing. And in doing so, you know, it led me to starting my own business, for example. And now I help others do it. And I'm setting a foundation for my daughter and your daughters to be able to have resources and, you know, people that can guide them and direct them, because we don't all have that growing up, right? And so legacy is something that I believe starts with a decision in the mind. And it starts whenever you make up your mind.
What I hear you saying is that you have to be intentional
Absolutely.
about choosing to leave a positive legacy.
That's right.
And you can't wait till later. It's something that we have to do now. You know, oftentimes when I'm asked about the best timing for a leader to begin to consider their legacy, have to say it's now. And you know what? It makes you a better leader anyway. And we can't wait. We have to choose to say, you know what? I have to be intentional now for my children, for my company, for my employees, for my, and you fill in the blank, for my family. I have to be intentional about my decisions today so that I leave a positive legacy for tomorrow. Well, I love this quote. Listen, it says this: when leaders leave in their wake strong families, strong companies, teams, and individuals who can perpetuate and reproduce that strength in a positive and healthy way, the result is both leadership and legacy at its best. And our hope is that today you will choose to say, you know what, I want to be persistent in my pursuit of all things. I want to have my purpose require persistence, and I want to leave a positive legacy. Closing thoughts, Yvonne?
Well, as I was putting together, because I had to restructure my website for my company, and you know, they ask a bunch of questions about your mission statement and all of that, and they said, just summarize real quick, you know, just summarize what you do, or how do you want to summarize your company. And this word came to mind, and it's actually a word that has fueled me and defined a lot of how I operate, and that's excellence. I want to know that everything that I do is done with excellence. So nothing halfway. I don't want to feel like I didn't, should have, could have, would have. I don't want to feel that. And so that's part of the persistence. That's part of, you know, the purpose. Doing things with excellence, I hope, would be a part of my legacy.
Absolutely. And you know what? I want to commend you because I'm close to Yvonne in her life, and you know, she does have such an amazing standard of excellence throughout her life, and I really admire that quality in you, Yvonne, and I appreciate you. So again, it's been such a joy and such a privilege to have been a part of the 2020 Leading Ladies Conference, and I hope that you have enjoyed this segment of the conference, and we just want to wish you that you would relentlessly pursue your purpose, live it out, and leave a beautiful legacy in place for all those around you. It was great to be with you. God bless. Bye-bye.